We've got this great perch up here, Tommy. So we've seen the record crowds. I mean, so many fans here over the weekend, every single day. It's been packed for players like Eala, Joao Fonseca, seeing the Filipino fans, the Brazilian fans. Have you ever seen anything like that in terms of their commitment to those players?
No, but that's fantastic to see, right? It's all about the growth and the evolving in the tennis world. You know, it's such a global sport. So seeing that, and even watching Fonseca last night against Sinner, which was, you know, maybe the best hitting match so far of the tournament on the men's side, and seeing the Brazilian fans. I mean, that's what you kind of want. You know, you want that new atmosphere. Same for Eala, having all the Philippine fans from coming, you know, to support her. It's fantastic, and you know, supporting the young, the next generation.
Tommy Haas just admitted something that the tennis establishment has been trying to ignore for months. The Indian Wells tournament director went on Tennis Channel and basically said Filipino fans are unlike anything he's ever seen and has been in tennis for decades. When a former world #2 starts gushing about crowd commitment like that, you know something big is happening. So here's what everyone's wondering. Did Filipino fans just force tennis to finally pay attention, or has the sport been sleeping on this potential the whole time?
Tommy Haas, great to see you, Tommy.
Steve, Chris, great to see you, and congratulations from my side. It's always great to see you guys first thing in the morning on Tennis Channel, doing such an amazing job, you know, talking about this fantastic tournament, you know, analyzing all the players and everything. So it's great to have you back. Hope you're having a great time so far.
Watching.
Yeah, always do.
Appreciate that.
I have to.
Tommy, we normally talk to you before day one, before this tournament's even started. So 1 week in, what stood out? What's been your greatest joy and biggest headache so far?
It's always a joy, and you know, my head is obviously full and fogged up with a lot of things going on in the past you know, week and a half or so. But listen, these are my favorite 2-3 weeks of the year as well. Being out here in Indian Wells, this is, you know, obviously such a unique tennis experience. Always part you know, looking for, you know, new things that we can obviously implement for the fans, for the players. And so far, it's yeah, the biggest headache for me probably will be mostly the scheduling. You know, scheduling can be quite complicated at times, but you know, we always try to find the best way possible to make sure that the fans get to see everyone, hopefully, throughout these 2 weeks.
Let's get one thing straight. Tommy Haas is not some random guy dropping hot takes online. This is a former world #2, a multiple Grand Slam semifinalist. Someone who's been around tennis long enough to witness every trend, every hype cycle, every supposed next big thing come and go. And now is a tournament director at Indian Wells, one of the biggest events outside the Grand Slams. When someone with that level of credibility goes on national television and says has never seen fan commitment like what Filipino fans showed for Eala, that's not just a compliment. That's an admission. Because here's what really went down at Indian Wells. Steve Weissman from Tennis Channel asked Haas about the record crowds and the packed stadiums for players like Eala and Joao Fonseca. He specifically asked if Haas had ever seen that level of commitment from fans, and Haas said no. Just straight up no. Then he immediately followed it with, "But that's fantastic to see," which is basically corporate speak for "this caught us completely off guard, but we're going to act like we planned it this way." Let's break down what Haas actually said, because it's worth examining closely. He talked about growth and evolution in the tennis world. He called it a global sport, which sounds great until you realize tennis has been claiming to be global for decades while mostly catering to the same handful of countries. The biggest tournaments are in the US, Europe, and Australia. The players who get the most coverage are from those regions. And suddenly here comes Eala from the Philippines with an army of fans, and tennis is acting like this is some groundbreaking new development. But the best part was when Haas discussed the Fonseca versus Center match, calling it maybe the best hitting match of the tournament on the men's side. He mentioned the Brazilian fans and said that's what you want, that new atmosphere. Then he immediately pivoted to talking about Eala and the Philippine fans. Like he couldn't separate the two phenomena because in his mind, and probably in the minds of everyone running tennis right now, Eala and Fonseca are part of the same wave. The young generation hyping up the tennis world, as he put it. That's interesting because Eala and Fonseca aren't actually doing the same thing. Fonseca is following a pretty traditional path. He's a talented young player from a country that already has some tennis pedigree. Brazil has produced solid players before. He's climbing the rankings, beating top players, getting comparisons to the next generation of superstars. That's normal tennis progression. That's what the sport expects and understands. Eala is doing something completely different. She's bringing an entire country that tennis barely acknowledged before into the conversation. The Philippines isn't a traditional tennis nation. They don't have Grand Slam champions. They don't have a deep history in the sport. But they have 110 million people who are absolutely obsessed with Eala. And those people showed up at Indian Wells, filling stadiums, making noise, and forcing tennis to pay attention. That's not just evolution. That's revolution. And Haas knows it. That's why he kept emphasizing how fantastic it is, because it truly is fantastic for tennis. Not because they planned it, nurtured it, or did anything to make it happen, but because it's happening anyway. And they are smart enough to recognize a good thing when they see it. The Filipino fans aren't just supporting Eala. They are changing what tennis tournaments look and feel like. They are bringing an energy that most tennis crowds can't match. And they are doing it for a player who's ranked around 28 in the world. Let's talk about that for a second. Eala is not a top 10 player. She's not winning Grand Slams. She's not even taking Masters-level titles yet. She had a strong run at Indian Wells, beating players like Diana Schneider and Coco Gauff before falling to Linda Noskova in the fourth round. That's impressive, no doubt, but it's not the kind of run that usually generates this level of attention. Gauff is ranked higher. Noskova is having a breakout year. But neither of them had Tommy Haas going on television to talk about how their fans are unlike anything he's ever seen. Because Filipino fans aren't just showing up when Eala wins. They're showing up, period. They are there when she's playing on outside courts. They are there when she's the underdog. They are there even when she loses. That's the kind of unwavering commitment that tennis has been desperately trying to manufacture for years through marketing campaigns and player promotions. And here it is, organic, authentic, happening without any help from the tennis establishment. Haas also mentioned Victoria Mboko in his answer, which was a smart nod. Mboko is another young player doing well, another name representing the next generation. But let's be real, Mboko doesn't have what Eala has. She doesn't have an entire country treating her matches like national events. She's a great player with a bright future, but she's not transforming the atmosphere at tournaments. That's what makes Eala special, and that's what Haas was really acknowledging. The whole interview was basically Haas trying to wrap his head around what's happening while also taking a bit of credit for it on behalf of the tournament. He kept saying things like, that's what you want, and that's what it's all about. Like Indian Wells somehow planned for this. Like they anticipated that a young player from the Philippines would bring thousands of fans to the California desert and turn the tournament into a cultural moment. They didn't. Nobody did. This just happened. And now everyone's scrambling to figure out how to replicate it. But here's the thing about what Eala and the Filipino fans are doing. You can't replicate it. You can't manufacture that level of passion. Tennis can try to promote other young players from underrepresented countries. They can launch initiatives, programs, and marketing campaigns. But unless those players connect with their home countries the way Eala has, it won't work. Because what's happening with Eala isn't about tennis finding a new market. It's about a country finding someone to rally behind. And the Philippines chose Eala not because tennis told them to, not because she's ranked number 1 or won a Grand Slam, but because she represents something bigger. She's proof that Filipino athletes can compete at the highest levels. She's someone that kids can look up to. She's a reason to care about a sport that most Filipinos probably never thought twice about before. That's not something you create with a press release. Haas mentioned that both Eala and Fonseca are expected to play the Miami Open next, which makes sense. Eala had that magical run there last year, beating Madison Keys and others on her way to the semifinals. That's when people really started paying attention. That's when the narrative shifted from who is this kid to this kid might actually be special. And now she's heading back to Miami as a legitimate contender, with an even bigger fan base and even higher expectations. The pressure on Eala right now has to be intense. She's not just playing for herself anymore. She's playing for an entire country that's invested in her success. Every match is a national event. Every win is celebrated like a holiday. Every loss is analyzed, debated, and mourned. That's a lot for a young player to handle, but she seems to be managing it incredibly well. She keeps winning matches she's not supposed to win. She keeps showing up with that same intensity and fight. And she keeps making Filipino fans proud. Meanwhile, Fonseca is dealing with his own version of pressure. He's around world number 30 after that solid run at Indian Wells, beating good players before losing to Jannik Sinner in straight sets. That Sinner match was apparently amazing according to Haas, the best hitting of the tournament. High praise given the level at Indian Wells. But Fonseca is expected to be great. He's supposed to challenge Alcaraz and Sinner eventually. That's a different kind of pressure than what Eala faces. His is about living up to potential. Hers is about carrying a nation. The funny thing about Haas praising the Filipino fans is that tennis has been trying to expand globally for years. They keep talking about growing the game, reaching new markets, finding new audiences, and then the Philippines just shows up with his ready-made, passionate, committed fan base, and tennis acts surprised. Like they didn't know a country of 110 million people might be interested in supporting one of their own on the world stage. But tennis has always been slow at this. The sport is stuck in its traditions and its established markets. It knows how to sell tennis in America, Europe, and Australia. It knows how to promote players from those regions. But when something unexpected happens, like a Filipino player capturing the imagination of an entire country, tennis doesn't quite know what to do with it. So they just praise it, hope it continues, and try to take credit for creating an environment where it could happen. Haas talking about wanting that new atmosphere is particularly telling, because Indian Wells didn't create that atmosphere. The Filipino fans did. They showed up with their flags, their chants, and their unwavering support. They made it impossible to ignore them. They turned Eala's matches into events. Indian Wells just provided a venue, which is fine. That's what tournaments are supposed to do. But let's not pretend this was some master plan by the organizers. The comparison between Eala and Fonseca keeps coming up because they are both young, both rising stars, both bringing new energy to the sport. But their paths are completely different. Fonseca is climbing the rankings in a way that makes sense to tennis traditionalists. His winning matches against top players, his improving his game, his following the blueprint. Eala is doing something that doesn't fit any existing blueprint. She's more popular than her ranking suggests she should be. She's bringing fans who've never cared about tennis before. She's making the sport relevant in a country where it previously wasn't. And that's what Haas was really saying when he talked about evolution and growth. Because tennis needs Eala more than Eala needs tennis. The sport has been worried about losing its biggest stars, about declining interest, about the next generation not caring. And then here comes this young player from the Philippines with a solution to all those problems. She's bringing new fans. She's creating new storylines. She's making tennis feel relevant again. Of course Haas is going to praise that. Of course is going to call it fantastic, because it is for tennis. The question is, what happens next? Eala is rising in the rankings, but she's still outside the top 20. She needs to keep winning to maintain that momentum. She needs to keep delivering for those Filipino fans who are showing up and supporting her. And she needs to do it while everyone in tennis is now paying attention and trying to figure out how to capitalize on what she's built. Fonseca is in a similar boat, just with different expectations. He needs consistent results to climb back toward the top 20 and start challenging the elite regularly. His path is clearer in some ways. Win matches, climb rankings, compete for titles. That's how men's tennis works. But Eala's path is less defined because she's not just trying to climb rankings. She's carrying the hopes of an entire nation. She's representing something bigger than tennis. And that means every decision she makes, every match she plays, every interview she gives, it all matters more than it would for another player at her level. That's a lot of weight to carry. But based on what we saw at Indian Wells and based on what Tommy Haas just admitted on national television, she's handling it better than anyone could have expected. The real irony in all of this is that tennis spent decades trying to create exactly what Eala and the Filipino fans have naturally built. The sport wanted passionate crowds, global reach, players who could transcend the game and become cultural icons. They wanted tennis to feel important again. And they got all of that, just not from where they expected it. Not from the traditional tennis powers, not from the players they were grooming and promoting, but from a young star from the Philippines who just kept winning matches and capturing hearts. So when Tommy Haas says he's never seen commitment like what Filipino fans showed at Indian Wells, believe him, because he hasn't. Nobody in tennis has. This is new territory. This is what happens when a sport accidentally stumbles into something real, organic, and powerful. And the smartest thing tennis can do right now is exactly what Haas did. Acknowledge it, praise it, call it fantastic, and then get out of the way and let it happen. Tommy Haas said the quiet part out loud. And now tennis has to deal with the fact that Filipino fans just changed the game. Eala brought something to Indian Wells that the sport has been missing for years. If this breakdown got you hyped, smash that like button and subscribe for more tennis content that actually matters.